On today's show, we explore another potential option for the Ottawa Senators early at the NHL draft. Could they package number 7 and move up into the top 6?
And we continue our 2024 NHL Draft Prospect Profiles with two players, one a jack of all trades, and the other has one clear standing attribute.
But if you're going to be just good at one thing, be the best at it. We'll have those conversations and more on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory, while Brandon Piller is up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can also follow us on Twitter at Sens Central and find the show wherever you get podcasts. We are free and available on YouTube. Today is Wednesday, June 12th, and Pilsy, Locked On NHL Channels mock draft just dropped. We took Sam Dickinson at number 7, Charlie Elick at number 25, and a week later, I'm still feeling pretty good about those picks.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a very safe, projectable left-hand shot defenseman in Sam Dickinson, and then you want to make sure the Sens leave this draft with the right-hand shot defenseman. I think that 25th range, there's a handful of guys that we like in that range. Unfortunately, one of your guys was already gone, so we went with my guy there, and I think it's a great pick. Like, this team needs help on defense, and it's so hard to find defensemen. So you got to draft and develop them, in my opinion, and this is the draft to do it. So I like how it ended up, Ross.
I did too. And look, every day I wake up and I have a different order of the top tier of defensemen in this draft. We just spoke to Jerome Berube, full first-round mock draft dropping, not this Saturday, but next. And now I'm lower on Lev Shunov. Could you imagine? I was the biggest Lev Shunov guy. I was going to be Ross Lev Shunov if he fell to 7 for the Ottawa Senators. But now I'm being convinced that Zeev Buium could be that top defenseman. Sam Dickinson just has as much. Now in this draft, Sam Dickinson went one pick ahead of Zeev Buium. We had the opportunity to take Buium. He gets selected next for the Seattle Kraken. And I'm still up in the air on that. I almost feel like we could have gone Zeev if we're going to take a left shot defenseman. It really is a toss-up. Do you want a little bit extra offensive potential, but with a little bit more risk? Or do you want the safest, most projectable defenseman in this range?
Well, Ross, I'm going to go with option C here, actually. I've spent more time thinking about not whether the Sens should have picked Dickinson or Buium there. I think Anton Silayev is a guy that needs to be considered higher here, especially, Ross, doing a little more research on him. This is a guy that can play the right side as well. Now, I know we've been burned by that before, but when it comes with a prospect, at least you know he's developing on both sides, and the size of Silayev is unmatched in this draft class. So I really think that he should be seriously considered in that range as well.
You can go see the full list on Twitter at Sens Central. We posted it. It's also right up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Berkeley Catton needs to be considered here as well. Very high upside offensive talent that almost feels like he's being disrespected a little bit in the draft prospect, kind of the way things are progressing here, at least in the public eye. We'll see what happens on draft night in Vegas. He goes 9th here, so I'm looking at him being the best forward available when we stepped up to the podium. Cole Eiserman, who we're going to talk about later in this show, goes 10th. So there are some forwards in this range as well, but with Dickinson, Buium, Catton, Eiserman, Yakimchuk, and Silayev, with them on the board, you're going defenseman all day, it sounds like.
Yeah, like if Tija Ginla was available at 7, okay, you got me thinking. I like Berkeley Catton. I'm a big Berkeley Catton guy, rather. But I just think if you're the Senators, let's take one of these high-end defensemen, sit back and relax, knowing you're going to shore up the future of your decor. I just think that's the better avenue to take.
We went over this draft early last week on an email chain, but this morning I wake up and Zeev Buium's my pick at 7. So not to go back. I know you gotta, in scouting, what I'm learning from talking to guys who do this all the time and girls who do this all the time, you have to stand by your pick. So I hate that I'm already on the fence, backing away slowly, Pilsy. Dickinson's a good pick.
Yeah, might be a great,
but Buium might be a great pick. I think that's where I have to wrap my head around that. You have to swing for the highest upside, which is why I'm leaning Zeev Buium today if we did this over again, which we can't. And Zane Parekh is off the board 1 pick early, so he's not even in the realm of possibility here.
Yeah, and that's fair, but you're not leaving this being like, damn, we only got Sam Dickinson. Like, I think he's going to be a really good player.
Well, they didn't just get 7. Let's turn our attention to who we took at number 25, Charlie Elick, right shot defenseman, defensively responsible. Is there enough offensive pop for this to be a steal at 25? I thought, you mentioned you get your right shot defenseman. That's great. A lot of them rose higher than I'd imagine. Obviously, EJ Emery off the board at 23, and Adam Juracek off the board at 16. So once you get past those guys, the right shot defenseman market, if you will, really starts to dwindle. You'd have to be, I'm looking through our rankings, like Henry Muse, his value went down throughout the second half of the season. Adam Kleber as well. Like, you're really kind of looking further down your rankings after Charlie Elick. At least I am. So I think this was kind of a no-brainer pick, but Michael Haig goes the next pick, and we just talked about him last week. Like, he would be a great pick at 25 for Ottawa as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I just, obviously, if you guys watched our profile on Charlie Elick, I'm a big fan of he's my highest rated defenseman that we've done so far. I just think he's going to be a really good, I don't want to say two-way, because his defensive game is certainly the more shining part of his game, but the physicality you're going to get from this guy is one of the most heavy-hitting players in the draft. You can play him beside one of those left shot defensemen that have a lot of offensive upside, and he can kind of balance out a deep pair. So we were looking really seriously at EJ Emery, Ross, but then once he was taken, I think the pick was clear to me that it should have been Charlie Elick.
Pilsy, no spoilers, but if this one went through to pick 40, we're taking a forward at 39 based on taking both defensemen in the first round of this NHL mock draft. This was done by all the hosts at the Locked On Podcast Network. So if you want more information on other picks, a lot of the network will be talking about this on their shows. You can get them wherever you find podcasts. And let's leave this up for a second because it almost leads us really well into today's topic.
Yep.
Yesterday, we talked about potentially trading down. Both Pilsy and I identified 14. I would almost say even 11 for me. I really do think there's a bit of a drop off, at least in the excitement that I have around certain players there. But what about trading up? Pilsy, this draft played out in a way where I think it's appropriate to look, because Iginla and Parekh and Lidstrom are all choices that we would have had above Sam Dickinson, who would get 7th. So even internally for us, we see higher value immediately ahead, 1 and 2 picks. What would you be willing to do to cement the fact that you can get one of those players?
Ross, I'm going to make my position on this clear. There is almost no circumstance where I would advise the Ottawa Senators to trade up in this draft. For a team that has very little assets, trade capital, and really should be in the business of acquiring more assets and trade capital, I don't think it makes sense at all to give that away to trade up. And anytime there's a trade up in the top 10, it's going to cost you, even if it's just one pick. Like moving up to 6, Ross, I think would cost a lot more than fans would be willing to sacrifice here. Sure. Would you want a chance to have the first selection at Lindstrom, Parekh, Buium, Lev Shunov, depending on how you feel about him. Absolutely. But I think this draft is so good. No matter who gets picked, the 6 picks before the Sens, I could think of 3 or 4 guys I would be stoked to get at number 7 for the Sens. For me, no dice, no deal. I'm not even considering trading up.
If it would only cost you your 2nd round pick to
Nope.
move up, no, not even to move up to 5.
I don't think teams do it for that price. And no, even still, to move up to 5, I'm not doing it.
Good thing we had the mock draft, because there's not a whole lot of depth within this conversation, because I'm on the same mind. I think that you get your player at 7. This list in your 2 to 10 range, or like, let's put it this way, a tier doesn't end at 7.
No.
You're going to get a player from the same tier at 5 that you're going to get at 9. I think that you could probably draw a line after 10, 11, 12, depending on who you talk to. So you're good at 7. You're in a great spot. Now, if this was Locked On Sabres or Locked On Flyers, you're in that 11, 12 range.
Or Devils.
Well, they're going to do what they've already done once before, and that's trade it for a goalie. Like they did. What year was it? 2012, 2013?
Schneider.
They traded 9th overall. Bo Horvat's the pick.
Yep.
It's a win-win.
Yep.
Because don't the Devils get to the Stanley Cup Final the next year? If I'm not mistaken, 2012? That's way off track.
Yeah, that's 12 years ago. I'm not about to be able to remember that. But yeah, it was a trade that made sense. Yes.
A trade doesn't make sense, though, up for the Ottawa Senators here?
Nope, not at all. Unless, like, you'd have to be involving NHL roster players, and there's got to be more to the mix here. I am so much more interested in trading back than trading up, I'll tell you.
I don't know if I have to fact check us. Didn't sound like we were very sure on that, but they acquired Corey Schneider the year after they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. So nice work by me. You might have actually heard of the guy who led the Devils to the Stanley Cup that year. His name was Martin Brodeur in 2012.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And then he had a cup of coffee with the Blues after.
Exactly. So there you have it. The NHL draft is coming up in just over 2 weeks. Ooh. We are 13 days away from our boots being on the ground in Vegas. We're hoping to meet up and maybe even bank some interviews. I'd love to get Mendez on. Imagine Mendez in Vegas. The vibes would just be immaculate there. So we're hoping to see him, all of our scouts that we're going to owe some beers to, because we are getting the best insight from them for our NHL mock draft. We have Jerome Berube from hockeyprospect.com. We've got Cam Robinson coming on from Elite Prospects, Scott Wheeler from The Athletic, Brock Otten from McKean's, Rachel Dory from Betalytics. It is I would say an all-star team.
Yeah.
A whole group of first overall picks right here on the Locked On Senators podcast. So stay tuned for that as we approach the NHL draft. Let us know if there's an argument for trading up. Is there a specific player that you would like? Because I want some pushback. I want someone to tell me that we're wrong, but I just don't think that it's worth the assets. You should be compiling assets and maybe even moving down to 12, 11, 10 instead if you can add the right price. Pilsy, on the other side, give us another tease on Michael Brandsegg-Nygard, because I think that for him, he could be a guy the Sens target based stylistically on what they like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it seems like everybody's had him in the same range all year in the mid-teens. So I kind of wrote him off as being maybe a boring player that's just going to have well-rounded skills. And it's just going to be like, yeah, good player, pick him somewhere in the middle of the first round, blah, blah, blah. But as I looked into him and as I did my research, I've done a complete 180, Ross. Spoiler alert, he is my highest rated player to date. So I like him.
So there's half of a tease. Pretty good one, if I must say myself. And the other guy is our first player that any of our 7 scouts have ranked in their top 10.
Yeah.
That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Look, if you guys are trying to get tickets to NBA Finals, NHL Stanley Cup Finals, regular season baseball, or maybe you're not a sports fan, you want to see if you're listening to Locked On Senators, you're probably a sports fan of some kind, but maybe you want to take your partner out to a concert, to a comedy fest, to the theater. You can do all of that with Game Time. Game Time takes the stress out of buying tickets. They got killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. What you want to do is you want to find a way to get the best price, but maybe you're not a great planner like Ross and I. You leave things up to the last minute. Well, Game Time's the spot for you. They often have last minute deals, or maybe you want to go to the game, but you don't care where. Well, check out the zone deals. They're going to pick zones that are best for you. You get the lowest price guarantee. No looking at your price and thinking this is a great deal. Then you get to checkout and it's like $30 more. No, not with Game Time. They tell you the price right at the bat. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the GLEBE Central Pub, the best bar in Ottawa. Guaranteed. The vibes are free at the GCP. You can head there for a smash burger. You can head there for wings. You can head there for a great time. They're always getting up to something at the GLEBE Central Pub. How about movie night? A new feature at the GLEBE Central Pub. They're going to be rocking movies, and they're going to make sure that everybody is in the spirit for it. So, movie nights every Tuesday and Sunday at the GLEBE Central Pub. Showtime starts at 10:30. Yesterday, it was the OG Jurassic Park. So they are leaning into some absolute classics at the GLEBE Central Pub. You can go do their watch parties for Athletico Ottawa, as well as their many prizes for music bingo, trivia. We got all sorts of great events going on at the GLEBE Central Pub. Where can you find them? At 779 Bank Street, right in the heart of the Glebe, walking distance from Lansdowne. It's always a great time to head to the GCP. Well, guess what? The Ottawa Red Blacks have their home opener tomorrow against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the perfect place to go for a pre-drink or after the game is the Glebe Central Pub. So visit them at 7779 Bank Street and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. The vibes are free at the GCP. All right, a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central, and we're on Instagram, LockedOn.Senators. You can also find the show wherever you get podcasts. We are free and available on YouTube. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now back to our 2024 NHL Draft Rankings, and coming in at number 15, we're going to the Allsvenskan for Michael Brandsegg-Nygard, one of the older players in the draft, and Pilsy, to say he plays a mature game would be an understatement.
Yeah, I love the way this kid plays, Ross, and we'll get into that for sure. So in the Allsvenskan League, in 41 games, he had 8 goals, 10 assists, good for 18 points. Now, maybe you're saying 18 points in 41 games. That doesn't really jump out of the page to me, and that's fine. But consider that's in the Allsvenskan League. In 5 games at the World Juniors, 5 points. And then Norway had their coming out party in the World Championships, and he was a big part of that. 5 points in 7 games. And then you continue to look at how he does up against his peers. In the J20 League in Sweden, he had 12 points in 7 games. And he also had 10 points in 12 qualification games. And it looks like he is going to play in the SHL next season. So the progression for Michael Brandsegg-Nygard is there, and you can already see that amongst his peers, he does very well. And this is a player that has pro projectable skills that is going to allow him to play in a men's league like the SHL next season.
And he's the type of guy, I don't think he ever sees the AHL. He'll stay in Europe until he's ready to play in the National Hockey League. He's been 18 since the start of the season. He's an October birthday, and really in a range where it's so all over the place. Like you look at Cole Eiserman, the highs and lows of what scouts are saying about him. It's almost the way that his game is too, the way that his rankings are. They're so steady across the board. Brandsegg-Nygard comes in at number 14 at the highest of our 7 scouts and 20 at the lowest. That's less variance.
Tight range.
That's less variance than there are scouts. 6 slots, 7 picks. So very impressive for the 6'1", 207-pound right shot right winger. The production, sure, it doesn't jump out at the pro level, but the way he played night in and night out, the consistency is what is impressing scouts. And I think that you can't talk about Brandsegg-Nygard without talking about him being a perfect complementary piece in a top 6 if he hits. He's not going to be the guy that has the puck on his stick all night, but he is going to be the guy that digs it out of the corner, gets in hard on the forecheck. You know, as I read more and more, and we've used this player comparable a few times over the course of the last number of years, but I see a little bit of Patrick Hornqvist in him. Now, maybe a little bit faster than Hornqvist, but so good in tight areas, wherever it is around the ice. And whenever he doesn't have the puck, he wants it back for his teammates. And I think that you're going to see teams fall in love with him, maybe even so much they take him in that 12 to 14 range, but he's not going to be sitting on his chair with his family for too long in that night. I think he's going to be off the board at the earlier part of this 14 to 20 range.
Yeah, Ross, I thought you were going to go with Nick Paul as the player comparable here because Nick Paul does it all. Well, Michael Brandsegg-Nygard does it all. It doesn't have the same ring to it, but he certainly does. And I think when you start talking about jack of all trades players, usually that has a negative connotation. You know, he's kind of vanilla. What does he really do good? Not with Brandsegg-Nygard here. Like, there's no holes in his game. He does everything a bit above average, I would say. And he has one defining attribute. It's his motor. Like, this kid battles. He explodes off the bench. EP does their awards in the draft guide. EP awarded him second best motor, second best power forward, second best two-way forward, and 5th highest floor. So already you're getting a sense of where this player is going to be. Like, this might be, well, no, this is of players we've covered so far. I have full confidence guaranteeing he will play in the NHL one day because he's so versatile. There's so many different ways coaches can use him. I really liked EP's film room article by Lassie Alinen, and he says he's arguably the best forward at applying pressure and forcing turnovers in the offensive and neutral zone while also being one of the most physical in his class. Like, the clips that Lassie was showing in this article, it's like it's like a shark with blood in the water. As soon as Brandsegg-Nygard sees the puck, he is obsessed with getting it. Like, he doesn't, you know, some players will be like, okay, I'm going to play my zone here, make sure I'm covering my angle, make sure I've got my guy. No, he is going for that puck. And even if, Ross, it's a line change, he's exploding off the bench. You know, some players that get on the ice, you know, you want to take 2-3 strides, scan your area, get a feel for how the shift is going. Nuh-uh. He's exploding off the bench and hounding down whoever has the puck. And it's not like a try-hard move where he's just trying to look good for the coach. He's effectively using his stick. He's angling the players wide or to the corner so they have nowhere to go. They have to push that puck up against the boards. And then he's going to beat you in that puck battle almost every single time. Like, there's just so many things that Brandsegg-Nygard does so well that NHL teams, scouts, and coaches are going to feel so good about having this guy in their franchise.
They will, but will they be getting the highest upside talent available where they pick him? That's the question, I think. Is he going to be a 60-plus point guy in the NHL? With the right line mates, maybe? But I don't know if he's going to be a driver to that extent. And maybe that's where a team that needs like a Senators, let's say, I know that he would still be their top prospect. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
But when it comes to Brandsegg-Nygard, it's that you don't get the same pop that you would from a Cole Eiserman who scores a goal per game at the level he's at now. And you can almost like close your eyes and be like, okay, well, I can see him, lighting up and being a night in, night out difference maker on the scoreboard. Whereas I think Brandsegg-Nygard would be the perfect pick for a team. And this is almost too easy of a projection, but Detroit picks right in this range.
Oh, yeah.
They have their high-end guy. Like, imagine, I know they're both right wingers, but you could play around with that. Like the high-end talent of a Lucas Raymond on one side. Not that he's not a hard worker, but then that dogged pursuit mentality that Brandsegg-Nygard has. And I think you could see a very successful line having these different ingredients. But he's certainly, he's your black pepper. He's a very important part of the spice cabinet, but he's not one where you get everybody fired up when they taste it. They go, "Oh, you pull out the cumin again? What's going on here?" No, it's very meat and potato style of hockey, but with a little bit of seasoning on there. So I like the player a lot. How are you for Sens stars? The highest ever, I heard.
Yeah, well, just a couple more things. I really like in that EP article, I referenced the film article. Alanin mentions that he's more of a facilitator than playmaker. So what he does is he keeps things going. Is he going to do that backhand sauce pass, backdoor tap in right on the tape of Sniper? No, but he's going to make sure he's always keeping things going and keeping the pace and moving that puck in safe, simple, responsible ways. So I think, like you mentioned, Ross, get him on a line with a playmaker and a sniper, and Brandsegg-Nygard's going to have 40 secondary assists. I kind of like Zach Hyman, right? Like you get Zach Hyman with an Austin Matthews or a Connor McDavid, he's going to have a lot of success. Now he's probably not going to score the goals that Hyman does, but I really like this player. Like I put Ross back check, forecheck, paycheck. That's the Michael Brandsegg-Nygard story. He's going to be able to do that consistently for teams. I've got him as a 4.5 stars, Ross. So what I'm saying with that, kind of like my 3.5 stars, really, in my eyes, he's a 5-star guy because there's no holes in his game. But I'm very certain he's going to go somewhere from 10 to 18, as is reflected by our rankings. So it doesn't necessarily make the sense for the Sens to pick him. Like I would not pick him with 7th overall. You're leaving a lot of upside talent potential on the table. So that's not what I would do. However, if the Sens did find themselves trading back into the draft somewhere in the teens and they say, hey, we just want a projectable player that can play in the NHL, you could make this pick, sit back, relax, and you're like, we got an NHLer. Everything else, now let's go for some home run swings on the rest of our picks. So that's the intrigue to a player like Michael Brandsegg-Nygard.
He's a very old Sens regime type pick. Athlete, compete, works hard, forechecks, all of that. But can he be that offensive pop type player as well? Time will tell. But if he's playing with great players, who's going to bet against him? If you do, he's going to be the type of guy that works even that much harder to prove you wrong. He comes in at number 15 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings with an average rank of 16.6. All right, on the other side, it's Cole Eiserman, a extremely polarizing talent, but he's got the best tool in the draft. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. You want to save time, you want to save money from the comfort of your own home or on your cell phone, you can do that, and you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some offers even have same-day approval and can avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius is going to help you compare all your options from the best companies, and they've got a team of licensed experts that are going to make it easy to compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks so you can find the package that works best for you and your family. Your work life insurance policy, may not offer the protection your family needs. And even worse, guys, it might not come with you if you leave your job. So have your family protected with unbiased advice from licensed expert support teams. They don't have any incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust that they're going to get the best package for you. Don't just take our word for it, though. There are thousands of 5-star reviews on Google. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL.
All right. A reminder, you can follow Locked On Senators wherever you get podcasts. We are also free and available on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. And stay tuned for our Locked On NHL Senators mock draft, an entire first-round mock draft. The recording has begun. Our third annual mock draft is coming very soon to a theater near you. And when I say theater, of course, I mean the Locked On Senators YouTube channel. All right, coming in at number 14 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings, he's heading to Boston University, and he's bringing the best shot in the draft with him. It's left winger Cole Eiserman.
Yeah, Cole Eiserman is a pure goal scorer in every sense of the word, Ross. With the USNTDP in 57 games, he had 58 goals. More than a goal per game pace. That's nuts. Had 31 assists as well for 89 points. So 89 points in 57 games. You'll love to see that. And then Ross, if you wanted to see him do it on the world stage, he backed it up as well with the US U18 team in 7 games, 9 goals and 1 assist. So this guy is able to score at a goal per game pace or more in recent history. It's absolutely incredible what kind of sniper he is.
So why is he not higher than in the teens on our rankings? That's a question that we'll answer over the course of this draft profile. He is one of the youngest players in the draft. The 6-foot, 197-pound winger is born in late August, and we know the draft calendar flips in mid-September. He has an average rank of 12.4, but he's in the top 10 for both Scott Wheeler at 7 and Craig Button at 9. Bob McKenzie and Elite Prospects both agree that he's 13th on their list. Chris Peters has him at 14, McKean's at 15, and Corey Pronman down at 16 on his list. What about that shot makes it so dangerous and so unstoppable?
Oh, man, there's so many things, Ross. The thing is, a lot of guys that have a good shot, they have one type of good shot, right? You know, it's the slap shot, it's the wrister, it's the quick release. With Cole Eiserman, it's all 3 of those things, and he might be the best at all 3 of those things too. Like, it's insane how good he is. EP awarded him the best shot in the draft. No shock there. Usually they give 3 little attributes in the top right corner of what he's good at. Sniper, sniper, sniper was all 3 of them. They didn't even bother doing another one because that's what he does. Our friend Cam Robinson with EP did an article on him where he mentions he's an adequate skater and can be physical at times. So trying to give him a little bit more, but really it's all about the shot. You see the elite one-timer. You see the wicked wrist shot. You see the quick release in tight. Like, there's also teammates love playing with him, Ross, because he makes a bad pass look like perfection. There's no way you can give this guy a bad pass. He can angle his body so that he can open his shot up. He can shift it over through his skates to his shooting side. Like, this kid, all you got to do is get him the puck and he's going to find a way to put it in the back of the net. And he's elite at finding ways to get open. If teams have a book on him and they're like, ooh, we got to watch him in this spot, he's going to stand in that spot. And if he starts getting covered, he's going to say, I'm going to slowly drift over here, and teammates know he's going to be there. There were so many replays, Ross. Now, of course, when you play with the USN TDP, you're playing among the best players in the draft class, so they're top tier playmakers that he's with. But there was guys doing no look passes to him with pure confidence. I know Eiserman's going to be there, and he was, and he'd one time at home. Like, again, just a pure goal scorer in bold, underlined, highlighted font. That's what Eiserman does.
And maybe this is too LOSP of us. We know that people watching this, your team maybe just drafted Cole Eiserman, but go watch Danny Heatley highlights from back in the day.
Yes.
He has some Danny Heatley in him. And when you mention, and I noticed this as well, the way he makes a bad pass look good, that was what made Danny Heatley such an elite goal scorer. Yeah, the release was great, but any pass in his feet was in the back of the net. It's just an innate talent that some guys have. In Ottawa, we've been lucky. We've seen Mike Hoffman very similar. I've seen him be compared to Mike Hoffman a little bit because away from the puck and in his own zone, Pilsy, it's not as sexy as the highlight reel for Cole Eiserman. In the games tracked by elite prospects and in the US NTDP U18s, like the defense is almost non-existent. Is the offense good enough that it makes up for it is a question that a team's going to have to answer, because if he was as good defensively as a Brandsegg-Nygard, like he would be a top 5, if not top 3 pick in this
top
draft.
3 for sure. Yeah.
Like that's where the separation lies. Where's the balance? We need the balance beam. How do you weigh being so elite offensively, but yet giving a lot of that back to the other team when they're in your zone?
Ross, to answer your question, there is no balance. He is all offense. There's no defense at all. He often cheats on offense. Now, again, EP mentioned when they talked about that, you have to take into consideration he's playing on the USN TDP. So it's not like he's like, oh man, I don't really trust my defenseman there. He has full confidence in their abilities, and they have full confidence in his abilities. So it's not like that guy in beer league that's hanging out at the blue line and you're like, come on, man, like come at least pretend to come back on defense. They're like, no, we got this and you got that. It's all good. So he might have to adjust as he goes to Boston University and moving forward here. But that's just the thing, Ross. You look at the scout chatter that EP includes in their guidelines. And
I love, let me know if this is the one you're thinking of.
Yeah,
okay?
you hit it.
He's too one-dimensional, but that dimension is incredible.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it, Ross. And so many scouts are just like, yeah, we get it. He's got the shot, but there's not really anything else to his game. And that's where you start looking at a guy like Cole Eiserman and you're like, is he going to flame out when he's not able to help out in other areas, or if he's not able to find that perfect chemistry like a Danny Heatley found a Jason Spezza? Like what happened to Heatley when he was away from Spezza? Sure.
Yeah, he's still okay, but yeah.
He's still good. He's probably going to get you 20, 25 goals.
But 40. It's the cherry on top. Well, he was also playing with Joe Thornton after. So
So let's look at Danny Heatley in Minnesota when he didn't have that facility.
Yeah, there you go. Right? In Anaheim. Hey, Anaheim Heatley.
Yeah, or in the DEL.
Because he even had Mark Savard at his prime in Atlanta too. So he got lucky. He played with a lot of good players, but he certainly found a different level with back-to-back 50-goal seasons. But yeah, you're right. In Minnesota, it was a 24, 25-goal guy. Yeah, in San Jose, at 39 his first year, then 26 in the 2 years. So you're right. It did kind of wane off right afterwards. But the problem, too, with Cole Eiserman, from according to one scout, is that he's too predictable in the offensive zone. He gets tunnel vision. He's like, I'm just going to grip it and rip it. And it's easier when you're doing that at lower levels. Let's see how it translates to college. Let's see if his buddy Macklin Celebrini's with him at Boston University, or if he's going to have to find chemistry with not a first overall talent. And we'll see where it goes from there. I think that could be a huge game changer, whether or not he gets a year to grow with Celebrini, or more likely what he's going to do when Celebrini turns pro and he's going to have to find a way to drive a line himself.
Yeah, and that's just the thing, Ross. He played with Celebrini at Shattuck St. Mary's U14, and the numbers are absolutely insane. I don't have them with me, but it was
I do. They're hilarious.
Read them off.
They played 50 games, which is pretty wild for 13-year-old kids.
Yeah.
He had 97 goals in 50 games and 154 points. Macklin Celebrini had 141 points on that team. So he was outscored by Eiserman. Obviously, they did a ton of damage together. But let me repeat this. 97 goals in 50 games. Eiserman hasn't just found a scoring touch this past year. He's been scoring since he started to skate.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable the instinct that he has for getting the puck in the back of the net. I love that skill, but he's in this range for me. Like 13, I think I've got him at 13 if not 14. But I wouldn't take the swing at him in the top 10 because there's so many more complete players that also have a similar, maybe not as high goal scoring wise, but a similar level of overall upside for how you're going to impact a hockey game.
Ross, I've just been thinking, and what I want to happen is for the San Jose Sharks to draft Eiserman. Imagine you could keep that duo together in college and then up in the NHL. And hey, look, where do we have him, Ross? We got him at 14. That's where the San Jose Sharks next first rounder is. So that would just be poetic justice, and I'm kind of rooting for that now, actually.
The Ottawa Senators pick 7th, but how many Sens stars are you giving to Cole Eiserman?
So I'm giving Cole Eiserman 4 Sens stars here. Look, there is not one single scout that is down on his shooting, scoring ability. Everybody understands and recognizes that. However, there's nothing else to his game, unfortunately. So for me, I would look at taking a Michael Brandsegg-Nygard over him just because there's more projectable talents. But if you're a team that already has an elite playmaker that you can see him playing with, I think you got to take a chance on this guy because those two could make Spezza Heatley magic right there. So I like him, but I'm not about to take Cole Eiserman with the 7th overall pick. So therefore, he's a 4-star guy for me. If you're going to take a swing on a guy, you want it to be a guy with a great shot and great goal scoring ability, but he's got to have at least some other inklings of other parts of his game, which Eiserman does not, at least for now.
As the Leafs prospects put it, all Cole Eiserman does is score goals. When he scored the go-ahead goal in the gold medal game at the U18s, he cleared the previous mark that was set by Cole Caulfield in 2019. Nice. That's a line from the Elite Prospects Draft Guide, one of the best resources going. They have him as shades of Phil Kessel, and I see that. And guess what? Phil Kessel was a heck of an NHLer for a long time. But Cole Eiserman, if he can work on getting a little more deception and vision in the offensive zone, the sky is the absolute limit for the best shot in this draft class. With an average rank of 12.4, Cole Eiserman comes in at number 14 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. For more, go check us out on YouTube. All right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Nope, nothing for me. Ross, I've got such tunnel vision towards the draft. I kind of forget that the Stanley Cup Finals are even happening. When I'm done dinner, I'm like, what am I going to do now? Oh yeah, like Cup Finals. Yeah. I'm just so dialed in on the draft that I almost want the Cup Finals just to wrap up sooner so we can feel like we're getting to the draft even closer here. And I know that's such loser talks. That's such classic Senators fan is like, yeah, the Cup Finals, cool. Let's get to the draft. But it's going to be amazing.
Oh, it certainly is. And I wonder if people can feel that excitement in our voices when we were doing prospects
Probably.
like 65, 70. It was so long ago. And now it's like, you're 2 weeks away. We're right around the corner, and we're around the corner from our top 10. So we're going to look at that coming up later this week and into next week, which also culminates in our 2024 third annual NHL mock draft. We're already an hour and 30 minutes in, and we're 8 picks in. So plenty of insight coming your way. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thanks so much for watching, listening, engaging with the show on social media, and subscribing on YouTube. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.